My 33 female husband, 36 male, may have cheated on me with my dead best friend and had an affair baby, plus update. Original post. I don't even know where to start. The past 6 months have been an absolute mess and it only seems to be getting worse. My best friend since elementary school, who I'll call Alice, passed away in February from cancer. She had a 2-year-old daughter who went into the custody of her mom, Alexis, after she passed away. Last month, Alexis showed up on our doorstep unannounced, telling my husband he needs to take responsibility for his child and either take custody or start finally paying child support. She says that Alice had told her when her daughter was born who the father was, but didn't want anything to do with him. To answer the inevitable, Alice was a traveling nurse and made a lot of money, which is the only reason I can think of for why she didn't go for child support. During this conversation, my husband had the worst panic attack he's ever had, so we had to end the conversation before I could get more details. My husband's story is, I don't even know. He said that Alice's daughter is probably his, but that it isn't what I think. Almost 3 years ago, we threw a large housewarming party as we just moved into our dream home, after I finally finished residency and was set to make real money for once. Alice was in town and set to be at the party, but I was called into work before she got there. I didn't get back until after 3 a.m. Party was winding down, my husband was passed out upstairs and Alice has already left the party, which at the time I did find strange as we hadn't seen each other in months. My husband claims he woke up in the middle of the night to Alice on top of him, but he passed out again before he could say anything. He claims he never told me because he was worried I wouldn't believe him, which I don't know if I do. He showed me some texts he sent his best friend the next day asking for his advice about him thinking someone violated him. But if he cheated, he could have had that conversation as evidence, especially since he never said Alice specifically. Ever since the party, he has been very distant with Alice, and after she had her daughter, he would even find excuses not to be around the house when she would visit at all. I don't know if that's because he cheated, or if Alice did actually violated him, and this was his trauma response. Honestly, Reddit, I don't know what to do. I've known Alice since we were children, and she had never come across as that kind of person. But I've also known my husband for over a decade, and he's not once ever given the inclination of a cheater. He's an attractive guy, and I've seen the looks he gets at the gym, and he's never even given more than a glance. What the heck should I do? How do I figure out what the truth is here, when Alice isn't even around to defend herself? She never even implied she liked my husband, let alone want to sleep with him. I told my husband he needs to get a DNA test before anything is decided on the child's part. But in the meantime, he needs to move out while I think about what I'm going to do here. Now for the top advice before reading the update. I don't know you or your marriage, but I think I would be inclined to believe and support my husband with a few details you've given. Yep, I would 100% give husband benefit of the doubt, especially if there's no DNA test. Would it be any less different if the genders were reversed? Last thing, which do you think should take to the grave? That she had an affair with, or she raped her husband? I hadn't thought about that actually. Thank you. That's a good point. She always thought I could do better than him. So if it was an affair, you would think she would have told me on her deathbed at least. Yeah, OP, I don't know you, your husband, or your best friend, but for him to literally send a text asking about rape is telling. Only a narcissist manipulator would come up with that kind of excuse for cheating. Since he doesn't seem to be that, I would genuinely believe him. Wow, OP, that is a mess. Paternity test for sure. The old text the next day sealed it for me. I think your friend took advantage of your husband. Good luck. This is the story of the day for me. I'm glad the top comments are all so understanding this time, because I've seen really similar stories on here where people absolutely crap on a woman in the same position. Basically, she cheated, dude. You need to dump her, no matter what the circumstances are. His reaction screams trauma response to me. Not being believed is a victim's worst nightmare. It's hard to be rational with these types of events, but could she have slipped him something? Did she have a history of one-night stands? Could they have been extra chummy because you weren't there and they were drinking? I find it odd she specifically asked about him the first time the baby was over, and that she didn't approve of him. On what basis? Lawyer up and then paternity test. Can you have a calm and collected conversation with your spouse that you want to believe him but you're also a mess emotionally and that you need a mediator together? Therapist. But mostly lawyer up now. I'm so sorry you're dealing with this. She was very free-spirited and loved to regale me with her stories of being out on the road. She was very pretty, so you can imagine she didn't do without when she wanted. As for them being chummy, I would have said no if you'd asked me in June. He was always nice to her, but she didn't like him much. I find it odd she specifically asked about him the first time the baby was over and that she didn't approve of him. On what basis? She knew I dreamed of being a doctor and was going places in life, while my husband, from all outward appearances, doesn't work that kind of job. He does contract work for companies and a government in project planning. She figured I could and should have done better. Lawyer up and then paternity test. Thank you, I appreciate it. My husband is dealing with the DNA stuff and should be contacting a lawyer as well. I'm not sure yet on a therapist, but I'll likely need one eventually. Now for the update. After talking with you, I've come to the realization that my husband is being truthful. My best friend forced herself on him. Several people pointed out that with Alice not liking my husband, if it was an affair, she would have told me when she was dying, if only to separate us. You're absolutely right. I was there in the room while she passed. I held her hands for days. We talked about so much. If it was just an affair, she would have told me. But if she violated my husband, she wouldn't have said a word. That's the type of thing horrible people take to the grave. I've also come to the realization that I made a terrible mistake asking my husband to leave for a few days while I gather my thoughts. Not to make excuses, but losing my best friend to cancer, a long cancer fight at that, was brutal. To say that I was devastated wouldn't do it justice. That it happened only 6 months ago, I'm still feeling it every day. So to have this thrown on me, it's like I'm losing her all over again. Either she betrayed me and slept with my husband, or she betrayed me and raped my husband. Not only have I lost her, but now I've lost the good memories, an entire lifetime's worth. It was impossible for me to look at him and not also see her, and be stuck with the horror and realization of that loss all over again. I felt I needed to be able to break down, grieve, and think without the fresh wave of loss I got every time I saw him. It was wrong of me to ask him to leave. You're right though. And as of a few minutes ago, I've righted this wrong. I called my husband. I apologized, told him I believe him, and begged him to come home. He'll be here in half an hour at most, and I'm going to support my husband the way I know he would have supported me. I've been an off and on Reddit user for several years, and sometimes the advice given on subs like these can be a bit hit or miss. But today you guys did good. You've helped me realize not only that I was wrong, and being stupid at that, but that I was hurting the person that needed me the most. I was selfish. I have no idea what we're going to do as far as the potential daughter is concerned, but I assure you we'll deal with it together. It's going to take a lot of time, and probably a lot of therapy to grieve this new loss. I feel numb now, as though I'll never cry again. My best friend violated my husband, which means she was no friend of mine. She flaunted it, coming to my house, sitting with me and gabbing. She brought her child here, trying to rub it in his face, right in front of me. She tortured the man I loved, and I was an unknowing party to it. I feel sick to my stomach over how many times she came over, just to hold it over him. I'm honestly at a loss on how to make that up to him. If you all have any ideas, please feel free to give them to me. I think I'll need all the help I can get. Tomorrow, I'm going to take a leave of absence from work, just until we can figure out our next steps and we can get our heads on straight. Thank you, everyone. Last story. Update. I, male 28, know that my son isn't mine, but my wife, female 26, doesn't think that I do. I've been married to my wife for 3 years and together for 5. Our son just turned 2 in early June, and to put it bluntly, he looks biracial. His skin is darker than I thought it would have been. He has curly hair when we most certainly don't, and his features just don't look like the standard white people which we are. He's such a beautiful boy, he just doesn't look 100% white. I asked my wife a few days after his birthday if she thought our son looked white. She said yes, and asked if I'm accusing her of something. I said no, because I genuinely wasn't. I just was wondering. I know genetics can be weird sometimes. We fought and I apologized, but I wasn't able to shake the feeling. So I did a crappy thing and got a test done behind my wife's back. The results came in a few days ago and I'm not my son's dad. I feel conflicted about my son. I love him, but knowing that he isn't mine is leaving a sour taste in my mouth. Our son definitely prefers me and he's my world, but he's just not biologically mine. I don't know what to make of my feelings. I'm a mix of emotions about my wife. I don't know how to talk to her. I'm angry, confused, and feeling very, very betrayed. I'm heartbroken too. I still love her. She's working at the moment and I don't want to disturb her at her office, but I feel like I'm going to explode. This is all very difficult for me to process, and I can't. I can't think of when my wife cheated. We always had each other's locations for safety purposes, and I can't think of any suspicious friends that she has or had. We go on regular dates and our bedroom is a den. We were also trying for a baby around that time, so I don't know when she cheated on me or why. Ever since we married, she's been over the moon, constantly showing off her ring and talking about me. She's like a teenager in love. How do I tell her that I know, or get that ball rolling? I don't know what I want to do yet, as stupid as that sounds. I've been stewing on it for a few days, but I still love her so much. Maybe someone can knock some sense into me? I need help. Now for the top advice before reading the update. Just say, I had a paternity test done and it shows I'm not his father. That ought to start off a conversation. Take it from there. Yeah, that's a good icebreaker. You place the results of the test in front of her and you say, we need to have a conversation, and go from there. You could express your concerns about baby being switched at birth and request your wife obtain a test to ensure. You didn't want to say anything to her unless it came back as it did. Let's hope it isn't like another Reddit person who found out their child was swapped at birth. That was a ride. This is where you need to be strategic, not emotional. I'd get a second test, just to be sure. And I might even have the kid tested against her DNA if you can obtain it, as it would rule out a hospital mix-up. Super rare, but it does happen. Then talk with a lawyer and probably pull half of any shared accounts before confronting her. Yes, check with a lawyer before yanking money. The reality is, either person on a joint account can empty it. If you are reliant on a partner who has been proven scientifically untrustworthy, take steps to protect yourself. Yep, if she cheated, the level of deception she had to pull off to try and pass a biracial child off to two white parents is astronomical. OP, do a second test and plan before you confront. Does he actually know her ethnic background though? Because most people assume that I am white, but my father's family is Puerto Rican and my abuelita is biracial. Her mom was black. One of my cousins had a biracial-looking baby, even though she looks white, and her husband is actually as white-bread as they come. It's rare, but it does happen. Genetics are wild, and they aren't necessarily passed on 50-50. We had something similar happen to a family friend. They appear white, but when they had a baby, the baby wasn't white appearing. But the baby was 100% theirs. Turns out, way back in the woman's family tree, a great-great-great-great-grandmother was black. But the genes were completely dormant for years. You mentioned that you were trying. Did you do any IVF? I just watched a documentary where a fertility doctor switched his sperm for any male patient's sperm. Also, there could have been a mix-up there. Also, someone said about a switch at the hospital. Give her the results and ask her to start explaining. Most importantly, talk to a lawyer and immediately start separating any and all financial accounts. As for the whole location being on thing, yes, someone can leave their phone in one place while they physically go to another place and then come back to pick up the phone. So you can't rely on that. If you have will and determination, you can figure out anything. Edit. I'm becoming overwhelmed with the comments. I'm sorry. I wanted to reply to a few, but I can't. I just wanted to say thank you for commenting and that I also hope our baby was just swapped. As terrible as that sounds. Our baby didn't look biracial at birth. As he got older, he started developing features that didn't look entirely like ours. If our son's skin didn't darken over time, I don't think I ever would have questioned anything. The other features can be explained as a fun little surprise or a few generation hops maybe. I know that genetics can be weird. Now for the update. Getting the bad news out the way first. My son isn't mine. I feel devastated and will be divorcing my wife. My wife and I had talked about our son a few days after my post, and my wife cracked under the pressure. She admitted to cheating on me without me even mentioning the test I had gotten done. All I asked was if she really thought our son looked white. I mean it when I say that if his skin never got darker, I wouldn't have known. She cried a lot and begged for forgiveness and told me that we can all still be a happy family. But my image of her shattered right then and there. I'm going through heartbreak, so forgive any mistakes. I'm currently living with my parents. I asked her when she even found a time to cheat on me, and she told me that she would leave her phone in a location and use another. She told me that cheating was a mistake and an accident. But how was it a mistake if you had it so planned out? We were trying for a baby around then, and she told me that she couldn't handle the pressure of it all and just wanted to escape. She didn't escape very well if she still got pregnant and acted like we were perfect. Thank you again to everyone. My wife will now be known as my ex-wife. I apologize to anyone who had hope and thought it was a baby switched at birth situation. I'm somewhat happy it wasn't, because that would be terrible, but extremely disappointed because that means he really isn't mine. There won't be any more DNA tests because she admitted to everything and showed me some text messages. There won't be any more updates from me either because I just want to move on with my life. I'll get everything sorted and figure out the whole custody thing. Thanks again, everyone. Goodbye. If she left her phone somewhere so he wouldn't know she was elsewhere, that's not an accident or a mistake. It's just crappy purposeful behavior. Sucks for that poor kid. I hope things turn out okay for him and Opie. Very much so. It was a deliberate decision. It was a choice, not a mistake. It was only a mistake because she got caught. I asked her when she even found a time to cheat on me, and she told me that she would leave her phone in a location and use another. Cold and calculated. But it was an accident, like stubbing your toe. She was under a lot of stress, and I don't know about you, but when I want to relieve stress, I would create a deep, dark secret that would destroy my family if anyone found out. When I'm under a lot of stress, I can accidentally eat a whole bag of chips. Similar kind of accident, fewer consequences. Paternity fraud should be a crime. Careful, or you're going to get downvoted to hell by people who think that men's rights are a joke. But yes, it should be a crime. Mandatory paternity testing at birth. This will solve infidelity in bad hospitals that switch babies. There is no accusation of cheating as the guy has no say in it. It's just standard protocol. Like, it's not like you get angry going through TSA, essentially being accused of being a terrorist. My mother-in-law cut my hair in my sleep because she thought I cheated on my husband. Plus updates. Original post. So I'm still processing this, but I need to get it off my chest. Last night, I woke up and realized someone had butchered my hair. One side is a jagged pixie cut and the other side hangs awkwardly past my shoulder. At first, I thought I was losing my mind. Maybe I sleepwalked or something, but no. I confronted my husband Tim because he's been acting weird lately, but he denied it. Then he dropped this bombshell. My mom, she might have done it. Apparently, my mother-in-law, let's call her Diane, is convinced I've been cheating on Tim. Why? Because last week, she saw me having lunch with a coworker. For the record, the coworker, Kyle, is gay, and we were literally talking about work. But Diane decided I must be having an affair, and instead of, talking to me or Tim, she broke into our house in the middle of the night with scissors and went full Edward Scissorhands in my hair. This morning, I confronted her. At first, she played innocent, but when I pressed her, she literally said, "Well, maybe now you'll think twice before humiliating my son." I was fuming. I told her Kyle isn't even into women, but she just rolled her eyes and said something like, "That's what they all say." I didn't even know how to respond to that level of delusion. Tim is horrified and apologetic, but I'm struggling here. This woman violated my personal space, destroyed my hair, and acted like she was in the right. I want to go no contact with her, but Tim is stuck between me and his mom, and I feel like this is going to be a huge blow-up in our marriage. Any advice? Because I'm honestly at a loss here. Now for the top advice before reading the update. This is assault. Please report her. Terrifying. You're right. It does feel like a form of assault, and I've been seriously considering reporting her. It's not just about the hair, it's the violation of my personal space and a sense of safety in my own home. I'm still weighing the pros and cons of escalating things legally, but comments like yours are helping me see how serious this is. Thank you for validating how terrifying it really was. It's pretty much set in stone that if she doesn't face consequences for this literal crime, she will continue to act in such ways towards you, unquestioned. By the way, your husband is a sack of turd. What a useless dude. With a spouse like that, who needs enemies? Your husband needs to step up or you'll regret staying with him long term. The husband sounds like he knew what his mother was going to do. Why does she have keys to your house? Your husband should be angry, but alas, I say he agreed with his mother. There's no way he'll go no contact. You'll get told to suck it up or admit to something you never did. Now, OB, you need to decide what you want out of your marriage. Wait for kids for her to say they're not your husband's. If your husband doesn't realize that this is straight up crazy behavior and that you need to be protected from this lunatic, he needs to be an ex. I completely get where you're coming from, and trust me, I've thought about this. Thankfully, my husband has been supportive so far. He's set boundaries with her and is backing me up. That said, I've made it clear to him that if he wavers or doesn't take my safety seriously, we'll have a much bigger problem. This kind of behavior can't be excused, no matter who it's coming from. One time, my mother-in-law was sitting in a car in the back seat behind me. She saw my hair and wanted to touch it, so she reached forward and gently grabbed a handful, running it through her hand. The only thing is, we were in a foreign country with the car windows down, and a motorcyclist had just rolled to a stop next to us at the light. For a split second, I didn't register it was her and thought the motorcyclist was grabbing my hair through the window. I was startled, but not hurt. My husband, then boyfriend, snapped at his mom, saying she can't just grab people or touch them without asking, and that she scared the crap out of me. Your mother-in-law snuck into your house while you were sleeping and hacked off all your hair. And your husband could only muster a sheepish, "It might have been my mom?" Hun, I think my husband would have to be restrained from screaming obscenities at her. Your husband does not have your back and is not standing up for you. He was clearly aware his mother had some kind of major issue with you and didn't give you a heads up. Now for the updates. Update 1. My husband and I will be going to my mother-in-law tomorrow to talk to her about the situation again. Hopefully, everyone will be calmed down by then, and I won't have to threaten legal action. Thank you for all the support and suggestions. I will keep them in mind. Update 2. After the conversation we had with Diane this morning, I noticed my husband Tim was acting weird. At first, I thought it was just guilt about standing up to his mom, but it felt like more than that. He's been avoiding eye contact and getting defensive when I bring up what happened. Earlier, I couldn't take it anymore, so I sat him down and told him he needed to be 100% honest with me about everything. That's when he dropped the bombshell. Apparently, Diane didn't come up with a haircut idea on her own. Tim admitted that he knew about it ahead of time and even helped her. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. He said he truly thought I was cheating on him with Kyle, my gay coworker, because Diane had convinced him that there was too much evidence to ignore. When she suggested cutting my hair as some kind of weird punishment, he didn't stop her. In fact, he led her into our house that night while I was sleeping. Tim said he didn't want to confront me directly because he wasn't ready for the truth. So instead, he let his mother do this insane thing to me, thinking it would force me to come clean. Afterward, when I didn't admit to cheating, he started to realize he might have been wrong. But by then, he didn't know how to tell me what he'd done. He kept saying, "I'm so sorry, I was just confused. But I honestly don't know how to process this." This wasn't just Diane acting like a lunatic. This was both of them. And my own husband betrayed me in one of the most humiliating ways possible. I packed a bag and I'm staying with a friend tonight while I figure out what to do. I don't know if I can ever trust him again after this. It's not just a haircut, it's the fact that he didn't talk to me, believed the worst about me without any proof, and actively participated in something so cruel and violating. As for Diane, she's officially dead to me. I've already told Tim that I don't want her in my life ever again, regardless of what happens between us. Right now, I'm torn. Part of me wants to file a police report on both of them for what they did, but I'm scared of how messy it will get. Another part of me just wants to cut ties and move on, but that feels like letting them off too easy. I don't know what my next step is, but I do know this. I deserve better than this. Thank you to everyone who has supported me through this. Your comments and advice have meant the world, and I'm truly grateful for the kindness and understanding. It's helping me find the strength to figure out what comes next. Update 3. After everything that's happened, I've been thinking a lot about my next steps, and I've come to a heartbreaking but necessary conclusion. I don't think there is any coming back from this. I trusted Tim with my heart, my safety, my life, and he betrayed me in ways I never thought possible. I can't imagine a future where I feel safe with him, where I can trust him, or where I don't carry the weight of his violation every day. I'm strongly considering filing for divorce. The thought of staying with him feels unbearable, but at the same time, I can't stop worrying about the messiness of it all. I just want to cut ties completely, to walk away and rebuild my life without him or his mother dragging me down any further. As for filing a police report, I'm leaning toward it, but I'm scared of what it might bring. I know what they did was a crime. My own husband led his mother into our home to assault me in my sleep. But the thought of dealing with legal battles, or even just having to relive this again and again in statements, is exhausting. Part of me wants to hold them accountable, but another part just wants to run away and never look back. Right now, I'm taking it one step at a time. I've been talking to friends, trying to find some clarity in all this chaos. It's terrifying and painful, but I know one thing for sure. I deserve so much better than this. Thank you to everyone who has shown me kindness and support. It means the world to me right now. Next story. I want to divorce my wife over her hair. This is just me venting, and I am so exhausted with my wife lately. Our little girl's wedding was back in October, and it was a complete disaster because of my wife. My wife and daughter had gotten into a fight before the wedding, seemingly made up a few days before, so we flew down and were going to stay until after the wedding. When we got there, my wife started complaining about her hair. My daughter suggested a few of the salons around New Orleans that could have fit her in before the wedding. My wife asked her if she would just do her hair. My daughter has her beauty license. My daughter agreed, and that's when the disaster started. My wife's hair was too warm, then too cool, then too warm again. My daughter had done it 3 times in a row, 6 hours each time, because my wife has a lot of hair and wanted to be foiled back to back. Not sure if I phrased that right. My daughter said she couldn't do it again for the 4th time because she didn't want to over-process her hair and that her body was killing her. She said she was becoming burned out from her nursing job, her hair job, and now all the wedding planning and running around. This 3rd appointment was the day of her wedding, by the way. Before it started, my wife said, "Don't take another 10 hours to do it." My wife became very short and snippy with her and complained about her hair the entire time. She kept sending my daughter pictures of hair colors she liked and telling her she colored it too gray and cool. My daughter was in tears during her wedding because she said her feet were blistered, making it hard for her to walk in the heels she had purchased for her wedding day. Her husband gently asked us if we could go home the day after the wedding, and I, of course, agreed. I was continuously telling my wife that her hair looked amazing and to leave our daughter alone, but she kept saying this is her job. I snapped at her after the 2nd appointment and said enough is enough. I also learned that my daughter had spent over $400 just on a product for my wife's hair. My little girl and her husband make enough to sustain themselves and live comfortably. But I know that after their wedding, they wanted to tighten their belts and start saving for a house because they plan on trying for kids soon. After the wedding, my wife completely blew up once we got home, saying her hair was a mess and that she was going to have to pay a lot of money to get it fixed. She texted our daughter and ripped into her, saying what she wanted wasn't that hard and that she completely destroyed her hair. Our daughter just replied that she was sorry and hasn't talked to us since. She sent me a happy Thanksgiving text and told me she loved me, but she hasn't talked to her mom since that text, and she only keeps in regular contact with her siblings. I am so beyond pissed off. She worked hard, coming off a 16-hour nursing shift and immediately doing her mom's hair for 6 hours, and then 2 more 6-hour appointments back to back, and my wife is still ungrateful? This isn't the woman I married. This isn't the mother that I know. If I have to hear about her precious hair one more time, I'm going to leave, because no hair is worth her relationship with her daughter. Now for the top advice. This sounds like it wasn't actually about the hair. This sounds like she was purposefully sabotaging the week and finding a reason to go after her afterward. Something else is going on here. OP says in other posts that his wife pushed her about having a wedding when she didn't want it. It was bad enough that they eloped and the wife/mom was upset. I'm still thinking she's just angry about that and that this child marches on her own tune, which is completely opposite of her mother's. Who the heck let this happen? It took me halfway through to realize she had a bride styling her hair for freaking 18 hours around the wedding. Where was the best man, maid of honor, fiancé, and especially OP? It's your freaking job to run interference with this kind of nonsense to keep the bride and groom out of this kind of nonsense. Is your wife menopausal and acting crazy? I say this as a woman because my mom was out of character and straight up mean for years with that. Maybe she needs help. Not excusing her. This is awful for everyone concerned. But if you don't want to lose your wife and your daughter, it's maybe something to consider. Not that I know of. She has monthly doctor visits and she's as healthy as a horse. She still gets her period monthly. I know this because I'm the one that has to buy her supplies. But maybe it's premenopause? Is it a thing? I've heard of it, but I don't know if it's a myth. Why does she have monthly doctor's visits? She's trying to lose weight, so she's been on this medication since the beginning of the year and does monthly weight check-ins. It helps hold her accountable and ensures she's still doing okay on the meds because they can cause side effects like heart issues. Is your wife on phentermine? That will definitely make someone act like an insufferable a-hole. It's essentially speed. Yeah, that's exactly the med she's on. She's taking 30 milligrams twice a day. Should I tell her doctor about this? Holy, that's a really high dose. I've used it successfully in the past, but it did severely affect my mood. And I had to be very careful not to be a witch. My GP advised that the max prescribed is 30 milligrams once a day, and a responsible prescriber will usually try to reduce to 15 milligrams. It's also not recommended for more than 3 months, with a max of 2 3-month courses allowed, provided you take a 1-month break after the first 3. I've used it twice in the last 5 years, but the second time, I had to stop early due to extreme anxiety. It's not a medication to take lightly, and there are better options out there now. Last story. My mother told me who my dad cheated on her with. My 17 male parents divorced around 2019 or 20 because my dad had been cheating on my mom for years at that point. Why it had taken her so long when it wasn't really a secret isn't really important. In 2022, I got a boyfriend. He was the brother of a friend I had when I was young, so we were somewhat familiar. We also go to the same school and have mutual friends. A few months ago, we split up for unrelated reasons after 2 years of dating. I was pretty crushed because I wasn't expecting it, so I went to my mother for comfort. It was my first breakup, so she tried to console me by telling me stories. At some point, she started talking about how she handled the split from my dad because, even though she knew he is an utter a-hole, divorcing someone after a 16-year marriage is still hard. Eventually, we started talking about his cheating and the things he had done. She began listing women she knew he cheated on her with, which, amongst others, included the woman he is now married to and a colleague of his. After that, she paused for a moment and asked me if I wanted her to tell me about someone she knew I would be particularly shocked by. I said sure. I expected maybe my godmother, not that she seems like that kind of woman, I just wouldn't have expected it. But she told me he cheated on her with the mother of my ex-boyfriend. I feel weird about it now, as I did then, because she really is a sweet woman and also married, happily. It seemed to me over the 2 years I was dating her son. They had recently had another child together, and I really hope that child isn't just a last-ditch effort to stay together like my little brother was. Your ex found out, and that's why he ended things. Don't think so. We are still in contact. If he knew, he would be a lot different. The breakup was sudden, but it wasn't because of that. My dad and he never properly met while we were together, and I wouldn't think my mom or his mother told him. His dad doesn't know, I think. I think you should ask him to meet up and discuss your breakup again and tell him what you know/have been told. God, no. He is younger than me and still living with his parents. I don't know what his dad knows, and I don't want to be the reason their marriage is over. That's their issue to work through. I know why he ended things, if what he told me is the truth and it seems plausible, and it has nothing to do with that situation. It's ultimately your choice. But since you're still friendly with your ex, I'm surprised at your lack of empathy and lack of morals. He and his father deserve to know the truth. And while you may not want to be the one to tell them, but someone should. If you don't, you're complacent and condoning the affair. Update. Am I the a-hole? My mom feels my sister should have married my husband instead of me. Original post. I'm upset with my mom and sister because of something my mom said, but everyone around me feels like I'm overreacting. And I need an honest opinion about whether I'm being insecure or if my mom and husband are wrong. Here's some backstory. My husband, James, 34 male, and I, 29 female, grew up as neighbors. My sister, Fran, 34 male, was in the same grade as James. Everyone knew Fran because she was smart and beautiful, and James had a huge crush on her. He asked her to the senior prom, but she turned him down in front of the whole school. Despite that, they stayed friends. After high school, James moved to a different state for college, and we didn't hear much from him except during the holidays. James and I weren't friends growing up, because I was in middle school when all this happened, and I was much younger. Fran and James would often hang out together, excluding me. Later, I went to college and got my first job in the same city where James was living. My mom suggested I reach out to him since I didn't know anyone in the area. We became friends, and 3 years later, we got married. We both have good jobs and love our life together. We moved back to our hometown during COVID to be closer to James's mom who had health issues, and because we could work remotely. Fran had a good life for a while too. She got married at 23 to a well-off man. But 2 years ago, she found out he had been cheating on her for most of their marriage. So she left him and moved back in with our mom. Fran hadn't worked during her marriage and expected to receive significant alimony. But due to complications with a prenup, she got very little and has been struggling financially. She found a job but can't afford her own place yet, so she's still living with our mom. James and I supported her during the divorce. Since he and Fran were friends growing up, they have a close bond with inside jokes and shared stories, which sometimes makes me feel like a third wheel. Although James makes an effort to include me and explain things. Fran visits us frequently, 2 to 3 times a week, often staying for dinner and sleeping in our guest room. She usually comes over when I'm not home, and I often find them sitting next to each other on a sofa when I get back. It reminds me of my childhood when Fran would exclude me from her social activities. Fran is also very comfortable around James, walking around in just a towel or sleeping in a guest room in her underwear with the door unlocked. I've expressed my concerns to her, but she dismisses them, saying we're a family and it's no big deal. I've talked to James about it, and while he now tries to include me more in conversations, I still feel uneasy. The main issue occurred last weekend when I was with my mom and Fran. Fran was reminiscing about how James used to do her homework and chores. She said he was so in love with me, and I felt guilty taking advantage of him. My mom then jokingly said, I wish you had been smart enough to marry James instead of your loser husband. You wouldn't be in this situation now. Fran just smiled and nodded, but I was hurt. I told my mom that James is my husband, and I didn't appreciate her making comments like that. My mom doubled down, saying that it made sense for Fran to have married James because both he and I are financially successful while Fran is struggling. She said it was just hypothetical, and that she only wanted both her daughters to be happy. I didn't like these comments and told them not to talk about my marriage like that. Fran then said I was being too sensitive. I ended up arguing with both of them and leaving. When I got home and told James what happened, he sided with my mom and Fran, saying my mom's comments was just a harmless joke. I also brought up Fran's behavior in our house, but he said that was an issue between me and Fran, and he wasn't going to tell her what she could or couldn't wear. Despite the apologies I received afterward, I still feel uneasy. Am I overreacting, or do I have the right to be upset? Should I be more secure in my relationship with James? Now for the top comments before reading the update. Not a-hole. Your mother's comments was inappropriate and disrespectful towards your marriage. And it's concerning that your husband is dismissing your feelings about Fran's behavior. It's not about insecurity, it's about wanting respect in your relationship at home. This has been a pattern throughout my life. Due to age difference, Fran has always treated me like a kid. I just felt insulted that my mom completely ignored my feelings while making such comments. However, a part of me also has been jealous of Fran because of all the attention she got, and I was the nerdy little weird girl in our family. Not a-hole. They're viewing a husband as nothing but a pocketbook and a lovesick boy. I wonder how your dad would feel if he knew his wife was talking about marriage like that. Unfortunately, my dad left us when I was 4, so I would not put any value of what he thinks about any of this situation. I also do not understand how me being financially independent has anything to do with not needing a husband that I love dearly. Not a-hole. If I was you, I'd be seriously looking to move away from your hometown and your mom and sister. Would James be on board with that? Not saying James would cheat, but being in close contact with your family seems to have put added stress on your marriage. And you were happier before the COVID move. This would be a bit tricky at this time because James's mom needs us right now due to her health issues. Moreover, we also bought our house last year, so we are stuck in this place for better or for worse. I'm waiting for Fran to try attempt something with your husband within 3 to 6 months. Also, you need to tell her no more sleepovers or just showing up. And put some clothes on for God's sake. And this is a firm boundary. And no, you don't care if they think you're overreacting. This is how it's going to be. All these comments have me really alarmed. I am going to talk to my husband regarding this. I do not want to be accusatory, but this whole situation has made me really insecure, and I was barely able to sleep last night. I trust him with all my heart, but I really am rethinking all the things Fran has done around him, and how she has undermined and belittled my feelings on every occasion. As for my mom, I got a half-apt apology from her last night about how she just blurted out something stupid, and how I am overreacting to all this, and she only wishes the best for both her daughters. Now for the update. Thank you everyone for your support on my previous post. The comments really made me anxious, and I started considering that James might have married me because of his crush on Fran. This thought increased my anxiety, and I started feeling paranoid. However, James has always been open with me. He even asks me to check his phone for new messages when he's not around, so I knew there was nothing suspicious there. Still, I felt uneasy about how Fran always seems to know when I'm not home, and why I often find her and James sitting together on a couch when I come back. I tried talking to James about my feelings, and while he acknowledged that my concerns were valid, he also pointed out that Fran is going through a tough time and refused to say anything negative about her or my mom. Last Friday, I went to the gym as usual, and when I came home, Fran was in the living room while James was cooking dinner. I felt frustrated and asked her what she was doing here. She said she didn't have any plans for the night and just came to hang out with us. This irritated me, and I told her that I wanted a quiet weekend with my husband and asked if she could come some other time. She could tell I was upset and started saying that my mom's comments were just silly jokes that I needed to let go. I told her I didn't find it funny, and we ended up having a fight. Fran accused me of always being insecure and annoying, just like when we were kids, and said no one liked me. Her words hurt deeply, but at that moment James stepped in and told Fran she needed to leave. I had never seen him be so firm with her before. Fran muttered some unpleasant things to James as she left, and I ended up in tears, spending the night in our room alone. The next morning, I prepared a list of everything I wanted to discuss with James. Her comments helped me organize my thoughts. I was feeling very insecure and started questioning whether James married me for who I am or just because I'm Fran's sister and look like her. People used to call me Dollar Store Fran in high school. When James and I sat down for a long conversation, I told him about my anxieties and insecurities, including how it bothered me that he spends so much time with Fran and shares inside jokes with her. I asked if he still had any lingering feelings for her. He was calm and reassuring throughout the conversation. He said he would be honest with me, but he didn't want me to resent him for it later. He explained that he knew Fran had used him during their school days because she was aware of his crush. When he went to college, Fran still tried to stay in touch, But the distance made him realize how badly she treated him. That's when he decided to cut contact and focus on himself. He said that was the reason he didn't visit often during holidays and eventually stopped being close friends with Fran. I told him I always felt like his second choice because he had chosen Fran over me when we were younger. He said I was only 13 at a time, and if he had liked me back then, we'd be facing a very different kind of issue now. He admitted that when I first reached out to him, he thought I would be just like Fran and wasn't too keen on meeting me. But after we spent time together, he realized I was nothing like her. We soon became close, started dating, and eventually got married. He also mentioned that when we got together, Fran was already married, and he saw how I often put her on a pedestal, feeling jealous whenever she posted pictures of vacations or new things her husband bought for her. He didn't tell me then that he didn't enjoy being around Fran because he knew that, in my mind, she was someone I looked up to. He explained that since Fran's divorce, he wasn't sure how to act around her. He said he was grateful to me for uprooting our lives to move back to our hometown for his mom's health and wanted to support my family the same way. When Fran's marriage ended, he tried to be there for her, out of support for me, even though it meant spending more time with her and revisiting old high school memories he would rather forget. I expressed my concern about Fran knowing my gym schedule and always coming over when I'm not around. He agreed that it was odd, but reassured me that he had always maintained a respectful distance and would have told me if anything seemed inappropriate. He said she mainly just talks about old movies, TV shows, and gossips about high school friends. James said he was willing to be the bad guy if I wanted him to tell Fran to visit less often, but he also mentioned that I'd probably reconcile with Fran and my mom eventually. So he didn't want to be blamed for being mean. However, he wasn't comfortable telling Fran what she could or couldn't wear around the house, as he thought it would be inappropriate coming from him. I felt reassured by his responses and realized I need to trust him more. On Sunday, my mom and Fran came over. My mom apologized sincerely, saying she didn't mean to make me feel bad with her comments and never wished any harm on my marriage. She just wanted to emphasize how great a guy James is and hoped Fran could find someone like him someday. Fran was a bit distant but did apologize for her behavior, blaming it on hormones. She explained that she likes spending time with her sister and best friend, which is why she visits often. I told her she's always welcome but should call ahead in case James and I have plans, and she agreed. I want to move past this, but I think it's important to set some boundaries around Fran's visits, especially when I'm not home, as I know it bothers James too. Overall, I feel like things are better now, but I realize I still need therapy to deal with my insecurities. I'm relieved that my worst fears didn't come true and that I have an amazing husband who is supportive and understanding. I don't know if Fran ever had thoughts about seducing your husband, but I think she was basking in his attention and was definitely living in a what-if world. She's divorced and financially insecure. Your husband was a potential future that she turned down. When she is over at your house, alone with your husband, she can pretend that that is her life. Married and financially secure to a man who at one time worshipped the ground she walked on. However, your husband doesn't feel that way anymore. I think you can trust his words on that. It sounds like he really just doesn't feel comfortable being the one to set boundaries because he doesn't want to hurt her feelings. And she's your sister. Create your boundaries. No more sleepovers, always be appropriately dressed, and don't come over suddenly. Call first, and be firm. These are not unreasonable boundaries. You're literally living in the same town. There's no reason for her to sleep over. Don't let your guard down just yet. Your sister especially hasn't completely earned your trust. It wouldn't surprise me if Fran tried to start trouble sooner or later. She sounded more petulant than apologetic. Last story. Am I the a-hole for refusing to attend my brother's wedding because of the way his fiancé treated my wife? So my 32 male brother, 29 male, is getting married next month. I was originally excited, but things took a turn when his fiancé, 27 female, made some hurtful comments about my wife, 30 female. For context, my wife has fibromyalgia, which affects her energy levels and sometimes requires her to need extra support. It's something we've navigated together for years. At a recent family event, my brother's fiancé told my wife, in front of everyone, that it was selfish of her to consider having a baby given her condition. She implied that raising a child with fibromyalgia would be a burden on me and suggested we think about adoption instead. My wife was mortified. She tried to brush it off in the moment, but I could tell how deeply it affected her. After we left, she broke down in tears, saying she felt judged and humiliated. The next day, I called my brother to talk about it. I wasn't necessarily expecting an apology from his fiancée, but I at least hoped my brother would recognize how hurtful her comment was. Instead, he defended her, saying she didn't mean it that way. She's just direct. You know how she is. That response really upset me. I told him it wasn't about how she is. It was about showing respect, especially to family. He dismissed my concerns, saying I was overreacting. After thinking it over, I decided that I wouldn't attend the wedding if his fiancée couldn't acknowledge how inappropriate her comment was. My brother called me dramatic and accused me of ruining his big day over a small comment. Now my parents are involved, urging me to let it go for the sake of family harmony. They believe I'm being unreasonable for skipping my brother's wedding over one awkward moment. But my wife feels validated by my decision, and honestly, so do I. I don't think we should have to tolerate that kind of disrespect just to keep the peace. So, am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. Your brother's fiancé was out of line, and your brother defending her is unacceptable. It wasn't just a small comment, it was hurtful and disrespectful to your wife. You're not being dramatic. You're setting boundaries. If they can't respect you and your wife, you're completely justified in skipping the wedding. Family harmony doesn't mean putting up with disrespect. It's exactly how I feel. Family harmony shouldn't come at the expense of my wife's well-being. I didn't want to make this a big thing, but when my brother brushed it off, it felt like he was choosing convenience over us. At the end of the day, I just want to stand by my wife and not let this kind of disrespect slide. If your brother and your parents were concerned about family harmony, why didn't they insist on a fiancé apologizing to your wife? That whole concept goes both ways. My brother, and I guess his fiancé now, has never been the one to apologize. The fiancé should apologize for the sake of family. She is being way too dramatic and tearing the family apart. Why would she poison the relationship between family this way and ruin her husband's wedding day by being so hateful and dramatic? I mean, that's just you being you. You being honest, just the way you are. No? There's your answer. I've never really thought of using the same argument before. Please do. It generally helps those members of the family break free of the familiar emotional ruts/family dynamic and see reason. In your case, it might help your parents see just how nasty and disrespectful your future sister-in-law was being to your wife and you. Suggest to them that we don't welcome new daughter-in-law to the family by allowing her to take a few pot shots at existing daughter-in-law. That's not cool. It likely won't help your future sister-in-law or brother to see the light. When you say they rarely apologize, that says a whole lot about the kind of people they are. Short of a true apology to both you and your wife, feel free to skip the wedding. Update. My dad stole my identity and opened 3 credit cards in my name. I turned him into the police. Original post. I found my dad used my information to open 3 credit cards over the last year. When I went to get a pre-approval for a mortgage, I was told by the lender they wouldn't be able to give me a home loan because of the defaulted credit cards. They also said I probably wouldn't be able to get a loan from any lender because of it and gave me a sheet of paper explaining what I need to do in order to fix it. When I tried disputing the cards, one of which is already in collections, the disputes got closed out, as the debts were verified. I told my divorced parents about it, and their answers were pretty wildly different. My dad said these things happen, and that I should be more careful in the future with my social security number. Seeing as I've always been careful, that made me pretty mad. My mom said she thinks my dad might have something to do with it, since him opening credit cards in her name had a part to play in their divorce. She told me he ran up about $50,000 in credit card debts on secret credit cards. A few days ago, I ended up casually telling my dad I'm going to have to file a police report for the credit cards. He told me I probably shouldn't do that because $15,000 isn't that much in the grand scheme of things. When I told him it was keeping me from buying a house, he said I could just wait a few years until they fell off my credit report. He said it would only take another 4.5 years. When I told him I obviously couldn't wait that long, so I have to file the police report, he straight up told me not to do it and to just be more careful in the future. Once I told him I already got the paperwork together from the credit agencies, he told me he had opened the cards to pay for living expenses over the last year. He said his work slowed down a little bit, but he'd do what he could to help pay it off. He said it would ruin his life if he went to jail. I'm leaning towards going to the police anyway, but I didn't right that minute. I have everything in front of me today to go make the report. I guess I just want to make sure turning it over to the police is the right thing to do here, especially if I'm wanting to buy a house this year. Now for the top advice before reading the updates. Report him for fraud. Now that he is older, a little prison time shouldn't bother him. A-hole. Report him instantly so you can have your life back. He knew this would happen, but just put it off until you grew up. If he wasn't your dad, you'd have reported him already, right? Well, think about this. Why didn't he give you the same respect and not ruin your credit because he's your father? You've got it somewhat backwards. The man ruined OP's credit because he's OP's father. He didn't do it to some random stranger on the street. He victimized his own child instead. He victimized his own child because it was easy too. Parents naturally have access to their child's social security number from the child's birth. Easy pickings. Would he do it to someone on the street? Most likely yes. He seems the type. But that's harder to do. Screwing over your wife and kid is easy because those numbers are readily available. And he banked on family love to keep himself out of jail. Report him. The same thing happened to me after my parents disowned me and I was an undergrad. I learned a lot about personal finance and got it sorted out and paid off the credit card bills. Then I find my dad trying to do it again. Told my family to stay away from me and gathered evidence that I would take them to court for the debit and identity theft. The fact that your dad is so nonchalant is giving me PTSD. Sign up for credit checking and or credit monitoring service to prevent any further activity, and definitely file the police report. Now for the first update. I spent about half of the day reading everyone's comments and it pretty much solidified what I was going to do. The process itself was pretty easy. I went to the police department and the person at the front desk had me wait about 10 minutes before an officer came out. We talked for about 15 minutes and I made copies of all the paperwork I gave him. He told me the case would be assigned to a detective on Tuesday and gave me a pamphlet they have about how to contact the credit agencies. I was given a report number and was told I could use that now to start disputing the accounts. A detective is going to follow up with me in the next couple of weeks. I asked what would end up happening to my dad, and the officer said it looked pretty clear-cut to him, but the charging decision is 100% with the state attorney's office. He said if they decide to pursue charges, he'll likely get a warrant put out for his arrest. He also said typically if this is his first felony, he's probably going to get some sort of pre-trial diversion with court supervision or probation. He probably won't go to jail for years, but if he gets picked up on a warrant, he's going to spend at least a little bit of time behind bars. I've decided I'm okay with that, because it's obvious to me he did this purposefully. He's never been arrested before, so hopefully this is a wake-up call for him. At the same time, he completely did this to himself. I'll update whenever I learn more. Well done, Opie. I was so mad on your behalf reading the first post. It would take everything in me not to use his words against him. Jail time? It's just a few years. You've ruined my life? No, you did, by trying to ruin mine. I hope the marks come off your credit report like it's made of Teflon. Good luck on your home ownership journey. Same here. I couldn't believe how Opie's dad just expected Opie to suck it up and have to pay that fraud off themselves. His attitude was essentially, "It's okay, son. My fraud won't affect your life for too long. Yeah, I've inconvenienced you a little because you can't buy a house for 4 more years, but it'll go by fast. Oh, in the meantime, I'll try to pay back some of the debt I racked up on credit cards I created using your social security number." He did this nonsense to Opie's mother as well. I'd be encouraging the mom to do the same and get her credit cleared as well. Perhaps when she sees how Opie cleared his credit up relatively quickly, she'll pursue him as well. Makes me sick a parent could do this to their own kids. Parents are supposed to protect their kids, not burden them. My dad and my stepmom are kinda bad with money. When I lived with him, he'd sometimes borrow money but never get it back. He'd find a way to justify not paying me back by saying it's for rent or some BS. Fortunately, it wasn't too much. Maybe $80 here, $40 there. Thankfully, he never did anything like this credit card fraud to me though. I too would want to go to the police to fix my credit, but it's obviously be really hard because it would destroy our relationship. Perhaps that's what these crappy parents count on. Guilt. We're actually much closer now than when I was younger, and he never asks for money either. I am amazed that a father would do that to his child. Defrauding you and the banks. He used $15,000 for living expenses? He didn't know there are federal and state programs that will help people having a rough time. I am guessing since your mother mentioned he did the same thing to her credit, this isn't his first rodeo. It sucks you have to now clean up a mess you didn't create to get back to ground zero before you can start the loan process for a home. Your father really needs to apologize and ask for your forgiveness for being an idiot. My best friend has 2 siblings, and their father tried this with all 3 of his children. Absolutely destroyed the credit of 2 of his kids. My bestie is smart and got keen to his game even as a teenager, and was the only one he couldn't/didn't screw over, because she was so vigilant about keeping him away from any of her information, monitoring the mail, things like that. So sad, considering she was also a teen parent trying to claw her way back to stability and create a better life for her kids, and she did. I think this is more common than people realize. Mine did something similar. Was just because he couldn't control my mom's shopping habit and didn't want her hassling him. I'm pretty open about talking to people about it, and I've had a surprising number of instances where people talk to me privately to relate some similar story. They don't talk about it often to avoid generating ongoing conflict within their family. Some people still want to reconcile with their family if possible. My dad's dead now, and my mom bounced when no longer financially beneficial for her to be around, so never has been an issue for me. Now for the second update. There's been some good, a little bad, and a little real bad progress the past few days. The good, I used my report number and dispute every account. When I checked my credit last, which everyone should be doing regularly, the one with the lowest balance was already off of my account. The other cards and the collection account are still showing, but I have hope they'll be falling off in the next few weeks. I also received a call from someone at the prosecutor's office who had a couple of extra questions for me and asked if I would be willing to testify if they charge him. I said yes, and they said they would be making a decision on their charges before the end of the month. The bad, obviously, is someone talked to my dad about this, because the last time he talked, he scolded me for going to the police and hasn't talked to me since. One of my brothers was also pretty mad at me about it and hasn't talked to me in over a week. The rest of my siblings and my mom understood where I was coming from. The real bad? One of my other brothers, not the one who was angry, found 2 open credit cards on his credit which weren't his. He checked his credit score for the first time in a couple of years, and he said it was down about 150 points from where it used to be. He's now in the process of dealing with that. He doesn't have any positive proof yet that it was our dad, but the fingers are pointing in that direction. This still blows my mind that a dad could do this to his own children. And moving forward though, I still hope to be able to purchase a house before the end of the year. Edit? Also, I think all of my other siblings, there are 6 of us, are checking their credit too. Probably for the best. I'm not a psychoanalyst, but something tells me he has an addiction of one kind or another. I've seen this behavior in others, mainly friends, family members who are significant others, and there is always a root cause related to addiction, whether it's gambling, drugs, alcohol, or all of the above. If you, your siblings, or your mom have a relationship with your dad in the future, this will absolutely need to be addressed before moving forward. I'm glad you sorted this situation out for yourself, and I'm certain it wasn't easy to do so. You also paved the way for your family members to manage the effects of this on them, as well as for your dad to correct his ways, whether or not he has deeper issues, or this was just a really crappy thing he did. Getting credit in other people's names might be the addiction, just like when rich people shoplift. They get a rush of dopamine by doing something they know they shouldn't. Imagine spending $5,000 that's not yours and thinking it will never come back on you. And it doesn't, so you do it again. This time, the limit is higher. It's a high that doesn't affect your appearance or make you fail a drug test. That's certainly a possibility, although one would have to be a crappy person in the first place to do it the first time. So that is the worst scenario for the family. At least if there was an underlying addiction, it wasn't him destroying his kids' futures. That's a controversial statement, but I'll stand by it. Addiction is a beast, and otherwise decent people become awful in its hold. One of my best friend's ex-husbands had a bad injury. They put him on painkillers he didn't need to be on, and he became addicted, then became abusive, spent their life savings while trying to procure more or alternatives, and destroyed both of their credit to boot. She's still rebuilding to this day. Unfortunately for her, it was well within his legal right when it came to the financial stuff, since they were married and accounts were joint. So she doesn't have the option to quick repair her credit like OP is doing. She also spent the majority of her personal savings to help him send to school for his master's, so the bleeding dry began even before that. But otherwise, this man was good to her until the addiction kicked in. That's sort of what this situation reminds me of mainly. Hence, I think there is some other underlying problem that will not go away even after he served his time. Although I can recall from OP's account in other threads if his dad was always this awful. Last story. Am I the a-hole for exposing my husband online? Original post. I, 28 female, recently discovered that my husband, 32 male, had been not only unfaithful, but also financially irresponsible. I had been struggling to pay bills since he had lost his job, but it turns out he had been squandering our savings on expensive dates with not one, but two women. When I confronted him about his infidelity and financial negligence, he showed no remorse and instead accused me of being too demanding. I felt betrayed and enraged, so I decided to expose him on social media. The financial strain in our relationship began when my husband lost his job. I had been trying my best to keep our finances afloat, juggling bills and expenses alone. It was a stressful time, and I thought we could make it through together. I was wrong. During a shift at work, an anonymous source reached out to me. They shared screenshots of conversations between my husband and one of the other women he had been involved with. These chats revealed details of their plans, their relationships, etc. At that moment, I felt a wave of anger washed over me. I couldn't believe how carelessly he had treated our relationship, our finances, and me. My husband, whose dad was a pastor, liked to preach about loyalty. But when it came down to it, he was running around with not one, but two women behind my back. Talk about hypocrisy, huh? Feeling angry and betrayed, I decided to put my husband on blast on social media. I uploaded all the evidence of his cheating and tagged him and his father, letting everyone know what a two-timing jerk he was. The fallout was massive, and he found himself in the spotlight, exposed for the hypocrite he was. Despite the mountain of evidence I shared, my husband's dad was still defending him like a loyal knight. He called me a liar, dismissed the screenshots, and claimed his precious son wouldn't do something like this. Talk about denial, right? Meanwhile, I was already deep in the process of filing for divorce. His dad's blind loyalty was just adding an extra layer of annoyance. Recently, one of my girlfriends told me I was overreacting, and it's normal for my husband to have more partners. So I've been wondering lately, did I overreact? Edit. Forgot to add, but my husband, before marrying me, posted and exposed his cheating partner, so I guess I'm returning the favor. Now for the top comments before reading the update. One of your girlfriends thinks it's okay for your husband to have girlfriends? That's not a person you should remain friends with. Wondering if this friend had some relations with OP's soon-to-be ex. Not much wondering on my part. A pastor condoning his son's infidelity and gaslighting the victim. Not surprising that a pastor would do this, because they tend to be hypocritical, egotistical, morally and ethically deficit. What the husband is doing is morally wrong, and will continue to do so in life, because daddy has his back. This man should be stripped of his pastor title, as he's clearly unfit to teach the Bible. To the wife, to hell with him. Find yourself someone who won't treat you like that. Thanks for such kind words. I hope you find peace and a better life you deserve. Brace yourself and lean on those you can really trust. Perhaps not the church folks that are connected to this pastor. Mini update. Wait, do people actually think my friend is one of the women he was with? Now that I think about it, possibly. I didn't add this because I didn't think it was significant, but my friend I mentioned here, one of my girlfriends told me I was overreacting, and it's normal for my husband to have more partners. We'll just call her Emma, female 25. Emma used to work with the same company my husband worked at. They did once go on a business trip together. My husband told me they did share rooms back then when I asked. But now that I realized it, the company only provided one room. Of course, she's been with him. Why else would another woman defend a cheating man whore? To her friend, OP needs to get checked for STDs and bounds. Then it's also weird that she's essentially telling you to stay with him if she's one of the affair partners. Because Emma doesn't want him. She just wanted fun time with him. Either that or he asked Emma to speak to OP. Full update. Thank you all for your support and input. After much reflection and considering the advice you've given, I've made a difficult decision to move forward with a divorce. While it breaks my heart to end my marriage, I can't ignore the pain and trust that has been betrayed. It's time to prioritize my own well-being and move forward. I've also got a lot of people telling me apparently my friend was probably sleeping with my husband. I looked into the matter and I don't want to give exact details, but you were right. I want to express my gratitude for everyone who has taken the time to offer advice and support. I know it's easy to doubt online stories, especially on a new account, but your insights have meant a lot to me. While this is a painful journey, your kindness helps make it a bit easier. Thank you all for listening and offering guidance.